486, 487, 488, 400, wait, oh, I lost count, I gotta start over. Let's try this. One, 2.5, 3, 4, 5. Oh, wait a second. 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Wow, there's a lot of ants. This is gonna take me all day. Ooh, I'm a little itchy. Ants in the pants! Hey guys, welcome back to day 4 of VBS. I cannot believe we only have one day left. Oh my goodness, it's gone so fast, but it's just been such a pleasure to be learning more about God and His qualities with you guys this week. Just all of His attributes that we've been studying just really reveal how great a God we serve. So thanks again for tuning in, and we're going to get started today by introducing today's attribute. Okay guys, so today's attribute is God is all-knowing. He knows everything. It's kind of mind-boggling to think about it. He knows every little intricate detail of creation. He knows every intricate detail of our lives. There is nothing He doesn't know, which just, you can't even fathom that. You can't even think about that. It's just so crazy. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to kind of go through the story of creation. And I know we've all heard this story before, or most of us have heard it before, but I want you guys to kind of look at it with fresh eyes today and kind of think, wow, God knew every single detail of creation when He made it. And when He spoke it into being, He had everything thought out and He knew it all before it was even spoken into being. So I want you guys to think about that as you're listening to this story. Okay guys, so at the very beginning, there was nothing. Try to think about that for a second. Close your eyes. Think about nothing. Can you do it? It's really hard, right? It's hard to think about nothing because we experience things all around us every day, and it's hard to just think about nothing at all. In the beginning, it says there was nothing except for God. It says in the Bible in Genesis 1:2 that the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So there was nothing except for God in the very beginning, nothing at all. And if you think back to our attribute from yesterday, how God is omnipotent, all-powerful, unlimited power, God has the power to just speak creation into existence, as we're going to see next. But also with that same all-powerful nature, God is also all-knowing. He has all the wisdom, all the knowledge of how to do this. And so it's really interesting to see these two qualities of God, these two attributes of God come together at creation. So let's hear what happens next. So day 1 of creation, God speaks and says, "Let there be light." And there it is. He spoke it and it happened. And so God then separated the light from the darkness on day 1. And so God called the light day, and He called the darkness night. And that was the end of day 1. Now day 2 of creation, God says, "Let there be an expanse above the waters and be separate from the waters." So He then makes sky and the waters below separated. And that's day 2. Then on day 3, God says, "Let the waters be gathered together, and then let dry land appear separate from that." So God then created dry land, and then water gathered together in oceans and seas and rivers and streams. And again on day 3, God also said, "Let the earth bring forth sprouted plants," so seed-bearing plants, flowers, fruits, vegetables, all sorts of vegetation to come up onto the ground on the dry land that's separate from the waters, and let that bring forth fruit and food. So then on day 4, God sets lights in the sky. So He's put sun, moon, stars, all in the expanse above in the sky. And so what this also does was it created seasons and times and days. And God knew all of that when He was making that. The one thing I want to show you quick before we keep going with our story of creation is when God placed the sun and placed the moon and placed the stars and placed the earth, He had all of this intricately detailed and made so that it can sustain our life on Earth. I want to show you this picture coming up next to just kind of give you a diagram of what it looks like in the solar system. Now, this picture doesn't show accurately how far away we are from the sun, but it kind of gives you an idea of the order of the planets away from the sun and the distance from the sun. And what I want you guys to look at is I want you to look at Earth, and that's where we live. And I want you guys to know something. If Earth was even a little bit closer to the sun, it would be way too hot to sustain our life on Earth. We wouldn't be able to survive. It would be way too hot. So on all those planets right before us, closer to the sun, no life can survive on there. And then if you look at the planets after Earth, if we were even like a smidgen past where we are located, it would be too cold to sustain life on Earth. We would freeze. We wouldn't be able to live. And so God knew exactly where to place us in reference to the sun so that we could survive and live and to take care of us and take care of our every needs. Even like the plants that we eat, all of those things need sunlight, but they don't want to be scorched or frozen. And God knew exactly where to place us to sustain us on this earth that He created for us. Day 5. So after God creates all the lights in the heavens, He then creates on day 5 some creatures for the earth. And so what He does is He says, let the skies be filled with all sorts of winged animals, flying creatures, birds of all different kinds. And let the waters be teeming with life. Let all sorts of creatures that swim in the water become filled in every ocean and river and stream. So like fish, turtles, amphibians, all sorts of things. He said, let the waters be filled with them. And that was day 5. Okay guys, now day 6, God creates all the land animals, things that creep and crawl and run and jump. He said, let the land be filled with all of these creatures according to their kind, and God saw that it was really good. And then He saved His most precious creation for last. And He said, let us make man in our own image. And so He saved us for the very end. And then guys, on day 7 of creation, God rested as an example for us. So what I want you guys to do now is I want you to think back to all the days of creation, and I want you to think especially in the order of which they happened and the order in which God created. God was all-knowing, and in all His infinite wisdom, He knew exactly when to make what thing, in what order to make them in. If you guys think about it, what are some things that we need to survive? What are some things that we need to be living? We need things like water, we need air, we need food. All of those things are things that we need to live. And if you think about the order in which God created, it has a lot to do with us. Think about the very first day, God created the light from the darkness. And then on day 2, He separated the sky from the water. And then after that, can we swim all the time? Can we swim and float around all day? No, we would eventually get too tired and probably drown. So God didn't create us next because we wouldn't have anywhere to live. So then next, after God separated the sky from the water, He then created dry land to appear because He knew we were going to need to be able to rest on the land. We couldn't just swim all day long. And then after He made the dry land, He made plants come and all the vegetation. And He even knew about that. So if the plants would have come before the dry land, they would just be floating in the water and not have anywhere to put root. We know plants need soil. So God knew to create the dry land before He then created all the plants and vegetation because they needed that to survive before they were created. And it's just so crazy to see how God had all of that in His mind, all of that in His thoughts, and He knew exactly what order to make it in. And not only do the animals need the plants for food, but they also need them for oxygen, for air to breathe. And so God knew that He needed to make plants before He made all the animals and then people, because all of us need oxygen to breathe, and that's what the plants are providing. So God even knew that little detail, and He made it that way on purpose. And He made sure that that was coming before the animals and the people, because we need that to survive. And God thought of all of those things and knew exactly what order to put it in. He's a God of order. He's a God of wisdom beyond all of our understanding. And so guys, after God created the animals, He created people, and then He gave us a day of rest because He knew we needed rest from our work as well. God didn't need to, but He did it as an example for us because He knew just what we needed. So God being all-knowing in His nature, you can just see all of this through creation, how He thought of every single little tiny detail that we would never be able to come up with. And He took care of all those details to sustain our life, to make us be able to live on the earth and enjoy what He created. So now that we reviewed the account of creation and how God was all-knowing in His design for creation, I want you guys to also think about how God is all-knowing about His creation, so how He knows every little detail about what is happening in creation. So if you think back to the videos that I had at the very beginning where I was counting the sand and I was counting my hairs and I was counting the ants on the anthill, if you think about it, God knows all of those things. He knows how many tiny little grains of sand there are in the world. Whoa. And it also says in the Bible that our very hairs on our head are numbered. So in Matthew 10:29-31, Jesus says, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a cent? And yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. But the very hairs of your head are numbered. So do not fear. You are more valuable than many sparrows." And so what I want you guys to think about in that verse is God knows how many sparrows there are in the world. He knows when one dies. He knows when one hatches out of an egg and is born. And then he says, he knows all of that. He has all of that in his knowledge, and yet he cares even more for us. We are more important to him than many sparrows. And he says the very hairs on our head are numbered. Have you ever tried to count your hair? It's like impossible. No one can do it. But God knows us that intimately. He knows every little tiny thing about us, even how many hairs we have on our head. That's how much he loves us and thinks about us. And then I was doing a little bit of research, so for the anthill thing, I was just trying to figure out maybe like an estimation of how many bugs there are in the world. Like, no one can really sit there and count, like in the Amazon rainforest, how many bugs are crawling around on the forest floor and how many ants are just even in this anthill at my house. It just would be impossible. And so I was doing some research, and I want to give you guys this number. It's really crazy. So there's an estimated 10 quintillion, that's 19 zeros, bugs in the world at any given time. Now that's just an estimation. God knows the exact number of how many there are, but that's just, that number itself is like, I can't even think it through. My brain hurts. And so God knows everything, down to the little tiniest little ant. He knows everything about creation, and he cares so much about it and so much more about us that we are so prized to him. And one of his most prized possessions and his prized creation, he saved us for last in the story of creation that we see. And he knows us so well. He knows our needs. He knows how we're feeling. It even says in the Bible that he catches our tears in a jar. He knows how many tears we cry. He's acquainted with our sorrow. He knows what we're going through. So he even knows that. He knows where we are. He knows when we sit and when we stand, when we rise up, when we go to sleep. He knows where we are. He knows everything about us. And so I just want you guys to think about that. Our God, the creator of the entire universe, he thinks about us, and he cares about us, and he knows everything about us. He even knows the bad stuff about us, like inner thoughts that might not be so nice, or he knows, the quirks that we have, or something that we are, we have the tendency to do that's not so nice. God even knows all of that and still chooses to love us. He still chooses to extend grace to us with all that knowledge and wisdom. He still loves us that much and cares even about how many hairs are on our head. And so guys, I just hope that this encourages you to just think about how great God is and how much he loves us and how much his thoughts are about us. And with all this knowledge and wisdom that he has, he uses that to care for us. And so guys, I'm so excited to hear you guys find some examples in the Bible that you can share with us about God being all-knowing and knowing everything about the world, everything about anything really. And we can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Next, we have a craft that's coming up, and we hope that you guys enjoy doing that along with us. All right, see you guys for craft time.